Hey everybody, and welcome back to Investing with Wesley. Just this week, the House passed the infrastructure bill. Now, inside that infrastructure bill is a rider or a clause that basically says, with it, we have to raise the debt ceiling of our country. Today's episode, I want to explain to you what that means, how it affects you, and really if it's something to worry about. Let's get into it. Okay, we'll start here at step one. Exactly what does raising the debt ceiling do? Well, just like you would imagine, raising the debt ceiling gives the US government more access to borrow even more money. As you would imagine, the debt ceiling is a cap on how much the US government can actually borrow or operate within debt before they have to cut spending and really think about paying those debts back. Now, raising the debt ceiling basically raises their credit limit on their credit card, giving them more access to spend even more money and work even deeper into the red. And at first glance, you're probably thinking that this is a terrible idea and that economic doom is right around the corner. And well, it is, sort of, but you're also wrong. Let me explain. From the 1960s to 2011, the debt ceiling has been raised 74 times. So raising the debt ceiling in the US is nothing new by any means. And just raising the debt ceiling doesn't mean that economic doom or collapse is right around the corner. However, what is new this time around of increasing the debt ceiling is just how much debt we're operating in and how much the government loves printing and operating in that debt. It has gone through the roof, and the debt charts ever since the COVID collapse have gone parabolic. Not to mention the SOFR rate and US repo rate causing a positive feedback loop that really is bringing us one way towards another Depression era event. That is what is new about this go-around's debt ceiling increase. Now, although the House passed it, it still has to go to the Senate. So what would an overall no answer be to increase the debt ceiling? If the Senate didn't approve it and that whole bill got shut down, what would happen? Well, for starters, we'd probably have a government shutdown with a bunch of grown adults acting like children, not wanting to work with each other. But after all that was settled and it was still a no answer, what would happen? Well, the US government would be forced to cut spending and possibly default on its debt obligations. This would mean cutting over 6 million jobs and completely wiping away over $15 trillion in wealth throughout the country. The answer to this problem, if we couldn't operate off of debt anymore, would either be raise taxes for everybody, which honestly really wouldn't work because the people that would contribute the most in taxes, i.e. the extremely wealthy, have the knowledge of the loopholes to avoid paying those taxes. So raising taxes really wouldn't do much. The only other option at this point, if we couldn't work in the red, is to sacrifice the working class. A bunch of people would be out of jobs, the people that weren't out of jobs would be completely hoarding their money, and we would fall into another Depression era event. Sounds like a super fun time, right? Well, what would a yes answer be? If the Senate agreed to raise the debt ceiling, what then? Well, if the answer was yes, it'd give the US to access to even more money and be able to work even more into debt. But on the good news, it would also stop the governmental default of their obligations, as well as not cut those 6 million jobs and get rid of that $15 trillion worth of wealth. It would keep everything on track, at least for now. Like I've said in a bunch of my past videos, the inevitable is coming and we're closing in on the end of our long-term debt cycle. But really, to answer your question, do you think it'll be a yes or a no? Really, the answer is always going to be a yes. It will always be a yes to raise the debt ceiling. And this is because even though for long-term success of our economy and our country, we need to have crashes every once in a while, no one wants to put a cap on the debt ceiling because they know it's going to mean defaulting, restructuring, and job losses. And that's basically political suicide for every elected official that votes to keep the debt ceiling where it's at. And even though you can only borrow from the future's wealth for so long, there's going to come a time where we have to pay these debts back. But like I said, it's political suicide and no one's ever going to do that. Even though sometimes it's what our country needs to get back on track for sustained growth and sustained wealth. So because no one in their right mind is going to commit political suicide, the bubble will continue to grow and grow and grow, and the debt ceiling will always continue to rise until the weight of our own debt crushes us just off of the interest payments alone. Just like what we see happening to Evergrande over in China right now. The weight of their debt, even though its low interest rate, is so vast that the company can't afford to meet its debt obligations. Eventually, you're going to run out of money and you're not going to be able to borrow from future dollars anymore. And that's why I said it'll delay all the job losses and the defaults for now, because at some point we will have to pay all of these debt backs, and at some point we're going to have to restructure, experience a crash, and default. Like I said, the inevitable is coming. And if I was in a position to change it, I would vote for the crash, because a crash is what economies need from time to time. They need a hard reset. But I'm not in any position to make these changes. So for now, all we can do is diversify our own portfolios and our own investments, educate the future generation on the importance of wealth and proper planning when it comes to wealth, and to create multiple income sources that aren't solely reliant on the US or the US economy. Meaning invest abroad, and if you're thinking about starting your own business, see if it can be something online or e-commerce like, so you can sell to other countries. That way, if the US does default, does tank, and does experience a depression era event, you won't be hit as hard. Now, I don't mean to sound too cynical when talking about all of this. The good news is they're probably going to say yes to raising the debt ceiling, which means the default and job losses probably aren't going to happen, meaning you have more time to experience growth in the economy and profit from all of your investments. But just the bad news is knowing the future generation is probably going to have to clean up after our mess is not really something I like thinking about. I hope you got value from this video. If you did, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. I have a dedicated Facebook and Instagram account. If you ever had a question, comment, wanted something addressed, or even wanted to recommend a topic for another video, feel free to message me there, because the YouTube comment section can get a little confusing to follow sometimes. Either way though, the choice is yours, and I'll see you in the next episode.